That's right. Welcome back into another Love of the Star podcast episode with myself, Eric Chiafalo, and the Super Bowl winning scout, Brian Broaddus. The Cowboys are 0-1 to start the season, but it was as encouraging of a loss as I can remember when it comes to these Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott looking super sharp. The offense giving us a lot of reasons to believe. Brian Schottenheimer having his team ready to go, not being the most undisciplined team on the field. Lots to like, plus the Eberflus defensive adjustments after Hurts was running wild. So Cowboys lose in filthy, but a lot of reasons for optimism here as we crank up in the season now. Great to have you in the Love the Star podcast, brought to you by the On Time Experts, which is super exciting. All we do here on Love of the Star is just ask you to support the people that support this show. And Love of the Star is proudly presented by the On Time Experts, the official AC heating and plumbing partner for the Dallas Cowboys, and now for the Love of the Star podcast as well. Keep in mind, the heat wave is expected to continue to fall. Do not wait. Get relief today. If your air conditioner is not working properly, call the on-time experts, and they'll come to your home the exact same day. And it's backed by their Stay Cool guarantee. Visit ontimeexperts.com. That's the ontimeexperts.com, and click the Book Now button. Pay less over time, and they correctly diagnose your issue and fix it the right way the first time. Broaddus, now that the dust has settled, how you feeling?
Oh, well, it's, it's one of 17, they say. So yeah, you move on to the next. It appears that all the positivity that you talked about is absolutely true. What the shame of it all is that for a lot of that game, they were the better football team, and that's where the disappointment with me kind of, and I know there's folks out there that hate that I'm not cheering this on as a, oh wow, a moral victory thing. I'm just not a moral victory guy. There were times you were the better football team. You found a way to run the football. You made some big plays. Defensively, you weren't very good to start the game. When it came to handling the quarterback run, the second half or after the weather delay, you got better on defense. That hour that you had in the locker room, maybe you were able to shore some things up. You had a rookie playing on the edge, and he was doing some things that probably needed to be talked about, and he was able to kind of calm down. But it's tough. It's tough. I just don't believe, Eric, that you'll ever have the Philadelphia Eagles at home in such a spot where you could have taken them out. And with all that was led up into this game, and this is what Brian Schottenheimer was trying to tell us: the element of surprise. The motions, the difference of the offense, the way that things were running, it was really good. He had a good game plan for the first half of the game. The motions, the play calling with run when you're supposed to pass, pass when you're supposed to run. I mean, the quarterback playing well, your wide receiver playing well. You're running the football with Williams. You didn't know a whole hell of a lot about how he was going to play. Yeah, there's a lot of things that game, they just couldn't maintain it on offense. And, unfortunately that led to their demise. They had a couple of chances at the end of the game, Dak Prescott to go win it. We could talk about the drops. That was a big part of the game. But there was a lot of other things. I mean, your best offensive lineman missed a block or couldn't control his guy on the fumble, down there in the red zone. We talk about Lamb, with his situation. When your best players are not making plays, when you absolutely have to have it, it's going to be hard to win the game. So I'm disappointed, and because I felt like that going into the game, and I picked Dallas to win this game. I liked what he was talking about with the element of surprise. I liked what I saw in some of the training camp practices and stuff like that. I had faith in Matt Eberflus was going to kind of figure something out here. But man, they played great in the secondary. They didn't give up anything. They gave up one big play. That was it. And to walk out of that game with a loss hurts more than a moral victory to me.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that for sure. I mean, you had a great opportunity.
It did.
And, and
That's
it was,
yeah. That's
I
the
think
problem.
if you're going, if you're leaning into the disappointment a little bit, it's because it was in a lot of ways some of your best players that you would never expect to be sort of the
That's it.
reason, right? Like you mentioned Tyler Smith, your best
Yeah.
offensive lineman on the Miles Sanders fumble. It was Tyler Smith's guy that forced that fumble. If Tyler Smith
Right.
gets a better block, the fumble maybe never happens.
Maybe it never
Shout out to
happens.
Dak Prescott for the incredible Superman tackle.
You win that
was
game, that's the play of the game. You win if you win that game, that play right there saved the game for you. Incredible play. But you need more of those, but please continue.
Yeah, I mean, so you have the Tyler Smith moment right there for sure. And then of course, CeeDee Lamb is really the headliner for
Sure.
reasons why that you fumble farted that thing away a little bit. And that's not something you ever anticipate. It's the most drops he's ever had in a game, big time drops. And other than the last one where he's outstretched out, it's fourth down, they push it down the field. I'm not like crushing him for that one necessarily, but man, all those other ones were Dak was so pinpoint. He was everything you wanted out of Dak. I feel like you were able to get. And unfortunately, it was just one of those nights where CeeDee Lamb's letting you down, and that's not something that we're used to seeing. And I don't imagine we see much of that again moving forward. Shout out to CeeDee Lamb, who the next day when they get back in town, off day for the players, the one guy in the building is CeeDee Lamb, and he's on the jugs machine, and he's trying to start making up for everything that he screwed up the night before. So Lamb's committed. That's not going to happen again. He took ownership for sure. But that's where a lot of the disappointment would be, right? Like you would expect one of your jobber players, one of your maybe a super young guy, whatever. But when CeeDee Lamb and Tyler Smith are a part of it, that makes it a touch more.
Well,
painful.
I'll say this though too, and we talk about Brian Schottenheimer and play calling, and I thought for the most part very good. But you got to find a way to get George Pickens more involved too. You've got to find ways to. We talked about it leading up to this game. What the mark for the Eagles was going to be Adoree Jackson. That was going to be. You didn't want to attack Mitchell. Didn't really want to attack Cooper DeJean. You wanted to attack Adoree Jackson, and that's where to me. You start to think like, okay, well, there's a reason why you have George Pickens on this team. There's a reason why, the thing with Ferguson, and we can lump Ferguson in there too. And you could talk about the ball that went down the middle of the field. That's a ball that normally he catches. If he catches the ball, maybe he has a chance to protect himself, and then he gets hit. But then it ends up to be a call and all that stuff like that. But that's a ball. If you watch the tape from the end zone copy, that ball, stop it. That ball is on his hands. That ball is literally in his hands. And that's a catch that we've seen Ferguson make more difficult catches than that one. And that's the thing. But I think that you've got to get George Pickens involved in these games. You've got to get I say games, but in this game, and to me, it was Adoree Jackson and whoever else they wanted to throw out there at corner. Those are the things that kind of just bother me a little bit. You had something going, you had a little bit of a rhythm. Okay, you're attacking him, and you kind of go away from that. You need to play, but match him up, find ways. I talk about the motion stuff early in the game, a lot of motion. And matter of fact, Turpin was the most motion guy you had. There's other ways to motion with your guys. Put Lamb in motion, put Pickens in motion. Do things to kind of help these guys. I think they kind of got away from that a little bit, after the weather delay. So as much positive as there is, there's things you could say, well, this is the reason why they weren't successful in the game to finish it out. That's the things that Brian Schottenheimer as a head coach is going to have to figure out, that, there were guys on that field that you absolutely needed to go after. And I don't think he went after them nearly enough in this football game. And so, that's my rant on this. But yeah, Matt Eberflus, you got to figure out something early in that game, not to let running quarterbacks kill you. You got to figure out, how are you coaching the scheme? How you scheming up, contain? Are players doing stuff on their own? I mean, we got to figure out. I've reached out to people in the organization asking about spy. Didn't hear anything back. Didn't hear anything back from that. So I don't know. I mean, that to me, that's just a disappointment in me, because I believe there was a path to victory in this game. And for the most part, they were on the path.
Mm-hmm.
They just got off the path at the end of that game. And I think that's what hurt them. Babe Laufenberg did a really nice breakdown of the pass that Lamb dropped, where Tolbert was right in the same area. I mean,
yeah,
it's like the route that Lamb ran was not the correct one. And again, Babe's not saying he's like, listen, this is what it looked like to me. I thought it was a really well explained about where, Lamb was just going to try and make a play. I think that ball, if you watch the way from the end zone copy, the ball looks like he's trying to throw it to Tolbert, and Lamb just happens to scoot and try and go make a play, which ends up to be, he drops the ball, but there's two guys right there in the same play. And you're wondering, wait a minute, how do you have two guys 40 yards down the field in the same location? Well, the way that Babe broke the play down was, I thought, very well done, and explained quite a bit why you had those guys. But if Lamb, he tried to make a play, just couldn't come up with it.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about that, and it's always a little bit difficult to know, like, whose mistake.
Well, we don't know.
It.
You don't know. Yeah, but you watch. He's
sure.
right. He's right. When you watch Lamb's route and where the release should have been, it was verticals. It was 3 verticals. What it was, I think 3-4 vertical, and Lamb just happened to get pinned inside and then went further inside, which dissected or crossed over Tolbert's route. I thought it was well explained by Babe Laufenberg. I really do.
Love it. Babe Laufenberg, Dallas Cowboys Radio Network. You can hear him call the games on 105.3 The Fan locally in Dallas, alongside Brad Sham and Christy Scales. All right, so back to the Pickens thing. I would love to know just how you thought he played, and do you feel like, because I felt like going back and watching, just the presence
routes
of
weren't great. Routes weren't great at all. I mean, routes weren't great for him. I didn't think they were.
There was a little bit of when he knows he's not getting the ball, and we remember that from Pittsburgh, and they were telling us, and we saw clips of it, when George Pickens is not the first read
primary.
If he's not the primary read in a progression, he may not be giving you the 100% when it comes to those routes. So that's something that you definitely noticed, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was some routes that were run that I felt like that George Pickens is a better route runner than what he showed. And you wonder, with the way the game was flowing. See, to me, this is why you get guys involved. You keep them in the game. You keep them. And I know after the game that it was George Pickens that was going up to CeeDee Lamb and, telling him, hey, it's okay, don't worry about it and all that. But I would have liked to have seen George Pickens have more opportunities. When they were throwing him the ball, it looked like to me the Eagles were having trouble covering him. They had to hold him, grab him. I mean, to me, it's setting things up. Set some things up for him. Bring him in motion. Let him run across the field. Throw him the ball on the move. Put him in bunch formation. Let him scatter. Let him have a pick route. Do things to kind of get him open. And I think this is where, to me, if you want to say something and be critical of Brian Schottenheimer, and I said it earlier, use him. Find ways to use him. Don't just put all this on CD and have it to go make plays. Figure out ways to get him more involved in the game. He should have, he shouldn't have just 4 targets in a game. He should have 6, 7, 8 targets. If that means that Ferguson has a couple less targets or somebody else has a couple, Lamb and Pickens need to be the primary weapons here on this football team. But he also, I think you're right, he gets into a point of the game where his routes are just not, it's just kind of, he's just running. He's not really, it's not, they're not clearing for each other. They're not, they're not doing things that they need to do. So, but I think that's also about engagement as well. he is a hell of a football player. There's no question. You're watching Mitchell, one of the better corners in the league, struggle to have to cover him, down the field. Those are the things that he can do for you. And I think you need to take better advantage of that. And hopefully in the future they will.
Yeah. And at least there was at least one occasion where he had a really, really nice block after a Lamb catch. That you could see the physical presence. So kudos to him for that. And then I do think just his general presence on the field opened up a lot of things for Lamb.
Sure. Yeah, it does. And, but that's what I'm saying, where there's times where you watch him run and it's like you could probably get a little bit more out of that. And there could be a little bit more. And, and I'm being super critical here because I know what kind of football player he is. You could see it. You could watch the times when he is engaged and stuff and running, and you could tell it's like, okay, they're having trouble covering this dude today, and that's why, to me, matching him up with Adoree Jackson, matching Lamb up with Jackson, and just punishing the Eagles for playing a corner that can't cover. That's to me, that's the thing that bothers me the most in coaching is when you have the players, and coaches always like to say, we like to put our guys in position to make plays. For the most part of that game, you really did a good job of that. But when it came down to crunch time, you really didn't. There were a couple of those, they had that one drive that was 3 and out. It was one of the worst drives they had the whole game. You've got to find ways to, when you have opportunities, to take advantage of that. And again, folks, I'm no apologies. I just feel like the Dallas had a chance, and that's what's so disappointing to me. And everybody's probably saying to themselves right now, listen, damn it, Broadus, move on. And, we're talking about it now, and I've kind of moved on to the Giants, but like I said, you were never going to have a better opportunity to beat Philadelphia under those conditions that you had to, and walk away the way you did.
You're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast, presented by the On Time Experts. They will come to your home the exact same day. You can visit theontimeexperts.com and click the Book Now button. You will pay less over time. They correctly diagnose your issue and fix it right the first time. Same day, or you don't pay for certain repairs. 100% satisfaction guarantee, no excuses, no exceptions, transparent pricing, no surprise add-ons or hidden fees, and they are locally trusted with years of experience serving the community. So all we ask you here on Love of the Star is, hey, support the people that support this show, man. We appreciate you rocking with us, whatever you're doing right now, getting going through your day. Maybe you're at the gym. Maybe you're sitting like Broadus at a random Chinese buffet with the AirPods in, soaking in some Love of the Star action, eating your feelings right now. As the
You know me
Cowboys
too well. You know me too well. Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to say, like, man, Dak Prescott, plenty of questions about him coming into this game. He did not look like himself last year. The whole offense was disjointed last year. Then he gets hurt, and it's like, okay, what are we doing? We don't see him in preseason, but, man, he hit the ground running, and it all started with the random, the spit stuff was ridiculous. What an unbelievable way to start the game and to start the season. Certainly helped the Cowboys' cause at least a little bit, having Jalen Carter off the field for the entire game. But Dak Prescott, he was really, really good. And just the general box score numbers don't totally reflect that. But when you consider all the drops and how accurate he was, the big time throws that he was making, and he was having to, under pressure, he was fantastic under pressure, getting out of the pocket, avoiding guys, making big time throws. Dak was, man, if this is going to be the version of Dak that we get this year, this offense for sure is going to have a hell of a chance to do something. So I just wanted to make sure that was very, very clear. Dak was awesome.
Absolutely. And you look at Dak Prescott and the pressure that he did have to face. The Eagles are going to rush 4. They didn't have success doing that early. So what did Vic Fangio have to do? He had to bring linebacker pressure, safety pressure, corner pressure, whatever he had to do. And Dak Prescott and all the dropbacks, he faced quite a bit of pressure, no sacks. And there was a couple of times where he had to spin and duck and navigate the pocket. And I thought Dak Prescott, you're right. The numbers don't show really how well he played in that football game. There's probably a couple throws. Anytime you make them, you're wondering like, okay, I wish I had that one back. He's lucky that Mitchell didn't have an interception there late in the game. I mean, he threw the ball right to him, trying to just kind of get the ball to the outside. And that's probably the worst throw he had of the day. But overall, though, you have to be very, very pleased for not, just having practice and training camp and going out and playing football. Dak Prescott showed up in that game for you.
Who else did you like offensively? Offensive line, anything stand out?
I tell you what, another one can mention here is Tyler Guyton. And I really wasn't sure that Tyler Guyton was going to start in this football game. Nate Thomas had been all through training camp. He'd got all the work. He'd played in preseason games. I thought they might go with the guy who is the guy that seemed to be more ready to play. But for somebody that did not get a lot of work, and Tyler Guyton got hurt, fairly early in camp, and so all of a sudden now you're not, you're worried like, wow, he looked good the first week or so with the reps he got. You were like encouraged by the way he was playing. And then in the game, you're like, man, is he going to be able to? Because he was not very good last year. I mean, his technique was bad, his hands were bad, his feet were bad, knee bend was bad, a lot of bad, But his attitude, he changed it. He realized he had to do some things. He went and got some work, in and on the off season, worked on his positioning of where he was being. Wasn't pretty all the time, but my man hung in there. And when it called to some one-on-one blocks, he did a fine job holding up his side of things as well. So I really do like what I saw from the inside three. I thought going into the game for the offensive line that was going to be a key. I felt like even with all the with Carter and Davis, those guys being on the field, I felt like Dallas was going to have the ability to block those guys inside, and for the most part, I think they did. So you have to give a tip of the cap to them. I thought they ran the ball well. I wasn't really totally convinced that Williams was the right guy, but man, you look at the toughness, the inside run, the power that he showed. It appears that the coaching staff knew exactly what they were doing here.
Yeah, and we had some questions when it comes to the running backs that we'll hit in the mailbag here coming up here in just a few minutes. But yeah, I thought Javonte Williams acquitted himself very nicely. The element of physicality right down there in the red zone where he's dragging what feels like the entire defense to as close to the goal line as he possibly can. That was a big time run. And like you said, just the physical, the toughness, the vision, all that kind of stuff. I think we all have some
good.
We have some Miles Sanders questions that we will get answered. Try to figure some things out about Jaden Blue here as well. But when it comes to Javonte Williams, that was awesome. And I like the way that they were. I mean, especially early in the game, man. I love what they were doing with the personnel groupings, and they were going 2-3 tight ends, maybe having Lipke in there, and there was a lot of variation, it felt like, to the personnel groupings, the alignment, and sometimes they would run out of it. Sometimes they'd go super heavy and just have Pickens and Lamb, only two guys running a route. Let's go play action, see if we can get a big play out of it. So all that kind of stuff I thought was really, really cool. Even some of the design stuff, I love what they were doing where, you're bringing Ferguson one way and then you're bringing him back the other to help, getting some kick out blocks and things like that. You could just tell, like, this is a much more layered and nuanced rushing attack. And that's something that we were really, really hoping for. And I felt like on night one, you saw some elements of that.
Well, but what they have to do is, these are all things that you practice and you're getting ready for week one. And now you're into the mode where you're only going to have the 3 days or 4 days to prep for the next game. Are these elements that you were working on all summer specific to what you saw with Philadelphia? I would hope not. I would hope that, like, every week that you're going to see some type of things you can hang your hat on, but also a new wrinkle or two running the football. That's, the creativity, the ability to attack specific defenses because of personnel for them is not very good. I think that has to continue. I think that has to be every week you need to figure out who is as my buddy Voch Lombardi would say, find the scrub who is not they're putting out there to try and hide or make sure that you're breaking this down. But the motion stuff was good. The double motion stuff was good. The personnel groups were fine. But now the challenge is, okay, week 1, you had some good positive things. Week 2, can you build on that plus be able to add 1 or 2 more things and just every week come up with some different types of schemes that will help you score points.
All right, let's take a look at the defense here a little bit, Broadus. Obviously, things did not start the way you wanted it to. Jalen Hurts really got going, and you give up plenty of points in that first half.
Yeah.
Then we come back, play a little bit, then you get the rain delay. Seemed like adjustments were made. You mentioned they start blitzing a little bit more. And just overall, your thoughts on the defense and what was wrong in the first half and how did they get that right in the second half? Because they were able to contain Barkley pretty nicely. And, of course, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, nobody really got off in a big way down the field. You had the dots in play. That was the one. Elam was there. Hooker had to jump on one of the other threats, so it was just kind of a one-on-one situation. But by and large, what were your thoughts on the defense?
I thought for the most part, yeah, you're right. The lack of discipline, though, early in that game, especially when it came to dealing with Jalen Hurts running the football. The scheme requires you to play in certain gaps. Scheme requires you to have certain responsibilities to be able to play contain. If you go flying down inside, spin inside, and all of a sudden you lose contain and there's nobody there to help pick up the pieces, then you're going to give up some big runs. Jalen Hurts is very comfortable looking at one read, and if it's not there, running the football. Very comfortable doing that. And so, that's something that they're going to have to worry about in the future. Again, I reached out to people in the organization about spy questions. Never heard back from anybody on that. What was it? Was it a possibility? Was it not a possibility? Do you feel like you didn't have the personnel? There's a lot of people that believe that Maris Leofau should have been in the game playing as a spy guy in those third down situations. Did you go into the game with the intent of spying him? And maybe this spy stuff is not something that Matt Eberflus is comfortable with. I don't know that. I'm just saying that. Now, I'm sure somebody out there will pull up an old internet article that says Eberflus, I wanted to spy or I don't want to spy and all that. But I tried to ask specifically and did not hear back. So to me, that was the big question. But discipline was better the second time around. What's amazing to me is how much zone coverage they played in this game and were able to get away with it. I did not particularly feel like that they had zone corners. When you start to talk about Diggs and Elam and Bland, I felt like these guys were probably better suited to play more man coverage. But they played a ton of zone coverage in this game and got away with it. The fact that you hold one of their best receivers to one catch in the final drive, that just shows you how well you're playing in the secondary right there, that you're able to cover them. So, the pressure playing on their side of the line of scrimmage, I thought there were several times where Kenny Clark and others were able to get across, get in the backfield, cause problems. Sam Williams felt like that there was some good from him. Ezra Raku has got to learn that, when you play against these NFL tackles, especially a Jordan Mailata, he's not going to play a lot of Jordan Mailatas. He will twice a year, but you've got to, when you break these guys down, you have to use your tools to get around guys. You can't rush these guys down the middle and expect that you're going to walk them. It just doesn't happen that way. So I felt like the defensive tackles as a whole played pretty well. The edges, other than the discipline of allowing the ball to get to the outside on the scrambles, I think was a problem. And in the secondary, I don't think you could ask them to play any better than they played in that game the other night.
Yeah, you mentioned they played a lot of zone. 100% zone is what they played every single.
I would have never believed they could get away with that, but they did.
Yeah, and when you go back and look at last year, Jalen Hurts was one of the best in the sport when it comes to throwing versus man coverage. I mean, there at the top in a lot of major categories. On the flip side, him versus zone last year, he was dang near dead balls last. in a lot of important categories when trying to throw against zone. So obviously Eberflus and company knew that, and they
Study
went
that. Yep.
yeah. And even the pressure stuff. I mean, there's plenty of times where it's like, hey, it feels like he's got all day to throw the ball. But when you look at it at the end, I mean, the Cowboys were one of like 5 teams in week 1 that got over 40% pressure rate.
Yeah.
So they were still able to, and they talked about this after the Micah trade, like manufacture some pressure. It took them a little while to kind of get their footing on it a little bit, but then you started to see them bring some stuff. You started to see the pressure get there a little bit better. Overall, Kenny Clark and that impact, because man, they were able to, when they were running between the tackles and trying to get Barkley just through the line of scrimmage, it felt like they couldn't do anything.
No, nothing. And they did a great job. And tip of the cap. I mean, we talk about being compromised a little bit. Philadelphia's health inside was not good, with Dickinson and then with also too on the other side with Steen. That there were 2 really good options for them to attack. And once the injury succumbed to addiction, and once he was out, then they really went after him. So, tip of the cap to Matt Eberflus for taking advantage of a very critical situation for the Eagles.
Yeah. It was really encouraging to see the defensive tackle play. Seeing the impact of Kenny Clark already was awesome. There's no doubt that the Eagles offensive line, they started to get a little bit banged up as that game went on, but we'll take it for a team that we've been worried about defensive tackle play for a long time. Man, that was refreshing to see the way that they were able to handle that. And the linebackers, I mean, felt like Sanborn had a couple more opportunities, but Barkley's athleticism was just too great for him.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you mentioned the Maris Leofau stuff. He's cracking heads on special teams. This dude's bringing physicality. He's got juice. And they're still playing Kenneth Murray. They're still playing Damone Clark, Jack Sanborn. Yeah. You got to find a way to get Maris Leofau on the field. I mean, Murray, it was tough to watch Murray at times. I'll tell you, man.
Murray struggled, but it's probably about stuff to do with Clark is something you probably have to think about, and I think it's from game to game how that's going to work. But, that's something I thought of the defense. I thought the linebacker play was the poorest of the 3 areas of the defensive linemen. You could talk about what happened on the contain, which we have. That was poor, but the linebacker play overall, I felt like needed to be a lot better in that game. And after the rain delay, they kind of found some things, but before that, it was a little bit of a struggle for them.
And I will say, tip of the cap to the safeties as well. I mean, I thought Malik Hooker coming down in the run game, and they
needed him.
In Oxnard, there were plenty of days where it was like, man, Malik Hooker's flying around and he's coming in there and helping in the run game. And you saw that as well. You saw him and Donovan Wilson making some plays that way. So that was really, really encouraging. Now moving forward, I mean, I would talk about Maris Leofau being a guy I want to see more of. Hopefully they'll get Perion Winfrey healthy and you can start to see him get mixed in on that defensive line rotation as well. James Houston would be another guy who had a big play in the run game. He only played 9 snaps. He would be a guy that I think I would be trying to get on the field a little bit more. Anything in the secondary? I mean, do you like the Diggs, Bland, Elam trio, or do you have any suggestions from that standpoint?
No, I think they're fine there. Me personally, it's Diggs and Bland would be the starters. And as you play nickel, then you could bring Elam in on the outside and kick Bland inside. That would be my only suggestion. Diggs and Bland need to be the starters. Elam as needed. That's how I would play the secondary myself.
Love it. Okay. All right. You're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast, presented by the On Time Experts. You can find them at theontimeexperts.com. Click the book now button and let them take care of you at the highest level. You don't want to have any AC issues, especially this time of year. And the On Time Experts are best in the business. 100% satisfaction guarantee. No excuses, no exceptions, transparent pricing, No surprise add-ons or hidden fees. They are locally trusted, years of experience serving the community. I can attest to that personally. Proven track record with thousands of happy customer reviews, offering service plans to keep your system running efficiently year-round as well. Just support the people that support this show, and we appreciate you very much. All right, Broadus, let's go ahead and dive into the Dean Julia mailbag, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Plenty of questions here now that we are in the thick of it. Week 1. Let's see. So getting a handful of questions with John Hyla, John Nelson, Darren Foreman, DJ Major. Handful of questions about the running back room. And were you surprised that Jaden Blue was a healthy scratch for the game? He was inactive, and they went with Williams, Miles Sanders, and then Lipke.
Yeah, I was surprised. I kind of felt like if this was an opportunity for Blue to play, this would be a good one. The fact that the Eagles don't blitz a whole lot, and so if you're worried about blitz pickup stuff, if you're worried about putting him in there for blitz pickup stuff, was he going to be a liability? I think there's been times where he's shown the willingness. He's shown some willingness on special teams, but they'll tell you also too, that was one of the reasons why that he was not active, is that they wanted to put Flournoy out there. They felt Flournoy was a better special teams player. So that's why they used his spot. It was, as you mentioned, a healthy scratch. Could have been a good opportunity. Maybe this week this will change. We'll see if in fact that the coaches say, well, listen, having Blue in there, having a little bit more explosive play or the ability to maybe take one of those runs and then, make it a big chunk run. There's some questions that people have that, the run that Sanders had that got down to the 11-yard line would Blue have the patience to wait for the blocks to set up, or would he have just pressed it and then it would have been a 5-6 yard gain? Sanders did, he did allow things to develop in front of him, and then once he got in there, then he just wasn't able to finish like Blue would finish. But the questions are, how would Blue have been as patient? Sure, I believe it. Blue wouldn't have been caught, but would have Blue got to the point where he would have been able to get into the open field? That's the questions. But I think as an organization, you have to look at the situation and say, okay, how do we get Blue more involved potentially? It's probably going to have to come through the special team stuff. They're going to have to figure a lot of that stuff out as they go forward.
If you were running things, because I'll just say, if I'm running things, Blue is going to get more opportunities in the backfield than Miles Sanders. I mean, would that be? Would you agree with that? Like if you were running the show, or
they think of it. If I was running the show, I would have probably played him because I didn't feel like that he would be taxed as a blitz pickup guy.
Right.
That's where I would look at it. If you go into that game worrying that he is going to make mistakes and get Dak hit, then you have to do what you have to do. If the coaches tell me, hey, we can't play this guy because he doesn't know the plays, and I'm saying that as a personnel guy, I'm not saying that Blue doesn't know the plays, but
right.
If coaches come up to me and we're starting to talk about inactives on a Thursday or a Friday, and they're going, I'm like, well, what about Blue in this game? Well, we really don't want to play him. He's not taking things from the classroom to the field. Gotcha. Okay. If that's why we're not going to play him, but it sounded like to me it was more of a special teams value thing than it was anything else. So
yeah.
Next Friday, when we sit down and talk about personnel against the Giants, I'm going to ask the question again. And it's going to well, how do we feel? And if they say, well, he still hasn't picked up the plays, he's struggling in the classroom, then again, okay, then maybe we made a mistake here. Or how do we get him better from the classroom to the field? How do we do that? Tell me how we do that. Because we all like this guy as a player. Again, folks, I'm saying this just giving you an example. I'm not saying that Blue is not smart or anything like that. I'm just saying the conversations that you have with your coaching staff on a weekly basis.
Okay, John Hyla Jr. wants to know, we remember Jerry after the Micah trade saying hey, we could still be aggressive with some of the assets that we just got, right? Yeah. If you were going to go make a move, Because after that game, you might feel like, okay, player here, player there. You could be in the thick of things, going toe-to-toe there with the defending champs. Is there a position that you would be trying
Linebacker.
Linebacker.
I would have looked at linebacker. I would try and legitimately maybe upgrade. Now we'll see what happens with. You mentioned there's some options there with Leofau. There's options. You drafted James. That's a rookie that you would have to put in there. But I would. People are going to say, well, you're going to give a first round pick for a linebacker. And no, to be honest with you, I feel like the question to me is I don't think Dallas is going to trade any of those picks. I just don't. I think they're going to wait for April and draft is what I think they're going to do. But if you said, Brian, give me a position, I think it's linebacker. I would go and try and find a legitimate linebacker. I mean, I say legitimate. I would find maybe an upgrade at the position, maybe at the Mike linebacker position.
I'm with you on that 100%. DJ Major asking about Eberflus and seeing the blitzing start to pay off. Do you imagine we'll start to see more Eberflus blitzing? And obviously we'll see some more man coverage, right? There's no way they're going to go 100% zone every game.
Might be. But yeah, I haven't looked at the Giants tape. I'll get on that. But it sounded like to me just early indications that the Giants really had problems with the Commanders pass rush in that game. I like I said, I didn't get to see all the game or anything like that, but I just looking at metrics this morning, it appeared that Dorrance Armstrong had a lot of pressures. It seemed to me that the Giants offensively, and this is why another thing, and we'll get into this week, I would not be surprised if Jackson Dart starts this game. I think we'll do that. I think, and it's only week 2, but you're in a situation where Russell Wilson wasn't good enough. It's just, and you've got a coach and a general manager that their jobs are really on the line. I don't know how you could sit there and wait, and all of a sudden you keep losing games and you think you're going to turn things around. I wouldn't be surprised if Jackson Dart started this week. I really, really wouldn't, because he gives them a little bit of something that Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston doesn't have. I mean, he gives you, he's accurate. He's tough. He throws the ball well. He's a smart kid. I don't think the game's too big for them. And I think that if you're talking about the general manager and the head coach there, they need to win games. And if they prove that they can win games with Jackson Dart, that might buy them some more time. I think this is going to happen sooner than later.
Yeah. And Giants head coach Brian Daboll after the game was pretty non-committal when they asked him about, is Russell still going to be the starting quarterback? So it might be Dart season already. How about that? Week 2, that'd be a pretty quick pull. But yeah, that Giants offense really looked disastrous versus the Commanders yesterday. Dean Julia wanting to know, just did this feel like a more disciplined football team? Not getting all the penalties, all that kind of stuff, being able to get the end of the half field goal through the uprights there in some crunch time. Overall, did it feel? I felt like the physicality was up and the discipline was up. It was kind of like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, there are 2 penalties that really bothered me in this game, and they're going to happen. One of them is going to happen. First game of the season, 12 men on the field bothers me. You got to be better sideline communication, better sideline awareness, better idea what personnel's in and out of the game. If you watch it, they got caught. You could tell that they got caught with having the too many guys on the field. It wasn't a runoff situation. There were 12 men on the field. It was clear as day. The other penalty that bothered me was the George Pickens bulldogging of Reed Blankenship. You go in there and block. You've blocked. You know how to block. You know how to go in there and take guys and square guys up. That was like a rodeo move. Like he went, just around the neck and head area of Reed Blankenship in that game. And that's a stupid penalty. That you go in there and block, get it done, and don't cost your team 15 yards for unsportsmanlike penalty for going after somebody's head like that. Square up, get the block, move on, get to the next play. Those were 2 bad penalties in my opinion.
John Nelson asking gap integrity. We talk about it all the time. We hear you talk about it, especially when it comes to run fits. What was it? Was it a lot better than we've seen in
second
years
half?
past?
Yeah, I mean, much better. I mean, especially after the weather delay. I mean, Kenny Clark makes a difference in there. Kenny Clark, Osa, those guys. I'm hoping that Winfrey is a part of this. If Mozzie Smith continues to be a healthy scratch, then so be it. But they are better. They are better with this group as the defensive tackles, and maybe Winfrey. I was talking to some people in the organization, even with Winfrey being injured, or the back spasms being a problem, that they were thinking that maybe he would not be active, which would have been surprising to me. But man, he kind of gives them something that they can work with, that upfield attack, play on the other team's side of the line of scrimmage. God, I hope he gets involved, because this group, if it's Osa, if it's Solomon Thomas, if it's Kenny Clark, and say Winfrey being in there, that might be a pretty good 4 guys to roll in there and get after people in the middle of the pocket.
All right, that'll do it for the Dean Julia mailbag. Thank you for listening to the Love of the Star podcast, brought to you by the On Time Experts. Broadus, you're a super beast, and we'll be back here in the coming days with a Giants preview. Maybe Jackson Dart is the quarterback we got to study. How do we contain Malik Neighbors? Dexter Lawrence, is he going to spit on Dak Prescott and get kicked out of the game? Probably not. So
we hope so.
We'll have his hands full. But thank you to all the great questions and all the great listeners. Love of the Star podcast, brought to you by the On Time Experts. We'll be back in the coming days. Thank you so much.